Hello, great community, and welcome to our episode 6 of the Hounds for Life podcast. We are, as always, Maya
and Shanna.
And we are, as you can see, heading into summer here on the southern hemisphere, and very excited to have temperatures up to 30 degrees now during the day. And we are bringing this podcast to you from the top of the South Island of New Zealand.
Groovy. So what have we been up to for the past few weeks?
Oh, actually lots was going on, and it was a longer period now that we are podcasting every 3 weeks in summer. So the last 3 weeks we had 2 Greyhounds rehomed, 1 was going to private foster care.
On the dog front again, we also have a very special guest, Harry, staying with me for a holiday. So Harry was in episode 3 and his parents have gone away for an awesome holiday and they asked us to look after him, so he's staying with myself and the 3 other dogs that I have, and he seems to be really enjoying it.
Yeah, he's enjoying the Hounds for Life homestay.
Yeah.
We have a small homestay boutique boutique. Small boutique homestay at Te Paranui. Jenna's looking after our guests as if that would be their own dogs.
Yeah.
So they are very lucky to have a homestay with us.
Very spoiled.
Very spoiled.
Cool.
And another very exciting thing happened in the past week. It was the 250-year celebration of Captain Cook discovering New Zealand. He originally landed 250 years ago right here where we are at the top of the South Island at Ship Cove, which is the beginning of the Marlborough Sounds. Beautiful, beautiful area of native bushland where you can actually go now and start the famous 72-kilometer Queen Charlotte Trek walk, which trekkers go in 3 days or 4 days.
It's so windy.
And
it's really beautiful though.
Beautiful walk. I did it actually.
The whole walk?
Yeah, the whole walk.
Oh.
32 kilometers.
Same.
A few years ago. So coming back to Mr. Cook, Captain Cook, sorry. There was a trust built to rebuild the Endeavour, which was the ship Captain Cook took here to discover the world, including our part here in New Zealand. And the replica has been built in Australia and has been shipped over or sailed over for the beginning of the festivities last Thursday, and I was there with the camera and taking footage how she came in. It was a spectacular. There were also walkers, which are the rowing boats, or how would you say, rowing boats, these huge rowing boats that the Pacific Islanders use to move from island to island. They came actually from Pacific Island as well, originally in their walkers for these festivities. And also the Spirit of New Zealand came, which is our very own huge sailing boat. And it was really spectacular. So please stay tuned. We have footage for all of this at the end of our show.
Little darling, it's been a long, long racing season. Little darling, it's time to rest and find a home. Here comes the hounds, didn't you know? Here comes the hounds, and I say it's for life. Hounds for life, hounds for life.
In our first segment, we have our owner's interview. This time we interviewed Wendy with her 2 girls, Missy and Fern. She has a wonderful Greyhound story, and she's very openly sharing all the ups and downs with the Greyhounds, starting with her very first Greyhound who sadly passed away, which is all still very touching to Wendy, and all the goods and the exciting things that Missy and Fern bring to her life, and the challenges she had when she adopted the Greyhounds. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy that, and it's very educational as well. So if you are considering to adopt a new Greyhound, or if you never had a Greyhound before, you will probably get much out of this interview this time. So see you later after that.
Hi everyone, my name's Wendy and I live in Picton with my 2 Greyhounds, Missy and Fern. So I got my first Greyhound, Sky, 12 years ago, and I was a first dog owner apart from when I had dogs as a child. So this was my first one as an adult. And I was looking around for a breed that would suit my lifestyle, and I didn't know what to get. But for some reason, Greyhounds just kept popping up on my radar for various reasons. And what really attracted me to them, but it sounds a bit funny, it sounds a bit silly, but they don't smell. And I really wanted an indoor dog because they're going to be my buddy and I want them with me as often as I can, so I didn't want to have them shut outside. So I wanted a dog that didn't smell or shed hair or bark, and Greyhounds fitted all of that perfectly. They're also really quite lazy, and at the time I had a really physical, strenuous job, so the last thing I wanted to do is come home from work and then have to walk a dog for kilometres or run a dog for kilometres at a time. So all those attributes just kept me drawing me to Greyhounds, and so I started doing more research and got convinced pretty quickly that's what I wanted to have. My first dog, Sky, I adopted from Greyhounds as pets, and she was 5 years old, and I asked for a dog that was affectionate, and I didn't mind about the cat, whether she was cat friendly or not, because I didn't have cats, so it wasn't a problem to me. And so I got her and she was amazing. She adapted very quickly to life in a house. What I did find actually is that while I knew that she wasn't cat friendly, she also wasn't small dog friendly. I think small dogs just took her by surprise and she didn't really know what they were. I think she might have thought that they were cats. So the first month was a little bit of a challenge in that every time I walked her down the road and we saw a little dog, she would then start going into predator mode and almost stalk them, which was a little bit embarrassing, as you can imagine. And so to counter out that, I had a water pistol, and every time she dropped down into predator mode, I would squirt her in the face with the water. It was just plain water. And yeah, didn't take too long for her to realise that she wasn't to do that. And also I tried to introduce her to other small dogs. So it wasn't long before she was about 95% trustworthy around little fluffy dogs. Other than that, she was probably a perfect dog. She didn't give me any problems at all. So I had Sky for 7 years, so she was 12 when she passed away, and her illness wasn't very pleasant for anyone. She got a medical condition where I think her nerves were starting to fail in her spine and her back legs. So first thing I noticed is she was starting to scuff her back feet where she walked. So I googled that and I thought I knew what it was. And I took her to the vet and the vet wasn't sure. But I just keep Googling. There's so much information on the internet that it can help you find things out. And for this disease, there was lots of natural therapy that she could have. There was no conventional therapy that was on offer, but there was lots of natural therapy like omega oils and vitamin B. So I just gave her heaps of those, and I did think that I did stave it off for a year. And she was happy and healthy, and we still went for our long walks. But of course, it comes to a time when we can no longer stave it off, and she got too sore and too much in pain that I had to have it put down. Oh, I'm getting crying already. And it was 3 years ago. And this just shows how much they mean to you. And it was very hard. I mean, I wish they could live as long as we lived, but they don't. So she passed away, and I had her cremated and had her ashes put up in the forest above my house so I can actually look out at her whenever I need to. So a month later, I just hated coming home to an empty house. I mean, obviously, I was still grieving for Skye, but I just hated being dogless. I needed a buddy. So I decided that I would get my next Greyhound. So I chose Fern from the internet, from an adoption agency, and I asked for a dog that would be able to be by herself because I work 8 hours a day. And so she had to be able to cope with being on her own for that amount of time. And so that's what I asked for. And I wanted a younger female that could be on her own. And I went down to meet Fern and fell in love with her straight away. She was 2 years old and she was still so much of a puppy. We got her home and she was only in the house 10 minutes and she started playing. I couldn't believe it. She just looked like she was going to adapt straight away. And she is such a lovely, cheerful, playful dog. So I spent the next week kennel training her. So I have a run with a kennel that I have when I'm not home so that they're safe. And spent the week kennel training her and it seemed to go okay. Well, it didn't take long, maybe 10 days, I started to get phone calls from my neighbours, and then I got phone calls from animal control that she was howling. So I set up a video camera and I filmed her, and she howled and held the neighbourhood down. It was the worst noise you could imagine. So once again, I dug out Google and I looked up lots of natural therapies and behavioural techniques, and for the next 3 months I tried everything I could to calm her down and get her to adapt to being left on her own. I was at wit's end because the other reason I was struggling with her is that I was struggling to toilet train her. And I think what had happened is when she was waiting to be adopted, she got a bladder infection that went undetected for quite some time. And I think that it left her bladder scarred and she had incontinence. So as you can imagine, being an indoor dog, she was wetting the carpet a couple of times a week. I'd take her to friends' houses and she'd wet the carpet there, and I was in despair. So I was having these two problems with her, and things weren't really going well. She was also, I think she is my problem dog. I think she had behavioural problems stemming back from when she was a young puppy in the racing kennels. And she was scared of everything. She was terrified of large trucks. She hated rain. She wouldn't go outside if it was raining. Just everything seemed to wind her up. And it got to a point where I really had to make some changes. I refused to give her up because she was my responsibility. And if I gave her up, who would know what home she went to? So I kept persevering, kept Googling all of this things about the floor wetting in her bladder, and keep trying to deal with the howling. So I'll start with the howling. I got to my wit's end. The only other option was to get a second dog. I really didn't think that I was a two-dog person, but that's what the only option was. And so I adopted Missy, and within days the howling stopped. I kennel trained Missy and she was perfectly comfortable, and the two dogs just love each other, and I can see Fern immediately just relaxed, chilled out, and you just wouldn't believe the changes in her personality. A lot of her anxieties disappeared, just having a sister to keep her company. So that was that problem resolved. I now had two dogs, but I do love seeing the dogs playing together and interacting together. So I'm now a two-dog person. Back to the bladder problems. I found on the internet this herb called corn silk, which people use for incontinence, And so I got some from the health food shop and I sprinkled it on her food. Again, the floor wetting stopped straight away. And if I came downstairs one night and found a puddle on the floor, I would remember that I had forgotten to give her her corn silk. And so I gave her corn silk for about a year, and then I started weaning her off it, and whatever it was wrong is now fixed. She now doesn't wet the floor at all. So I just wanted to share that because sometimes dogs can be really challenging and you really got to dig deep. But yeah, I do believe that with love and attention that you can resolve most problems. And as for Missy, she's an incredible dog. She just fitted in perfectly and she's problem free. None of my dogs have been cat friendly, so I always, when I walk them on the streets, they are always on a lead because I live near a reserve that's got lots of rabbits and they just love spotting rabbits. It's their favourite pastime. So they always got to be on the lead. I take them bushwalking with me, and sometimes when I'm well away from rabbits and well away from weka, because we are blessed to have weka in the Marlborough Sounds, and I know that they wouldn't be trustworthy around weka. But if I'm in an area where there's no weka, no rabbits, I do let them off the lead if it's safe. So I'm always very cautious about that. So other than that, yeah, I seem to be, touch wood, everything seems to be going well. Oh, one of my favourite pastimes is tramping in the bush, and I just love being with my dogs. So I really want to go tramping with my dogs because they're my company. And I always call Greyhounds two-wheel drive dogs, not four-wheel drive dogs. You know, they're not your robust, energetic hunterways or collies that can just blat about the bush for hours on end. They're quite fragile and they don't have long distance stamina. So I just built up with bushwalking over some time to get them fit and to get me fit as well. I'd take them out for an hour at a time, and then a couple of hours at a time, and then our biggest walk has been 7 hours, and I will admit it was probably an hour too long. They were knackered at the end of it. I take them food and plenty of water, and if the weather needs it, I take their coats with them too. But they really love to get out in the bush and lots of new smells, and I love having them with me. We had lots of breaks, so yeah, we'd stop every half an hour or an hour to give them a drink and for us to have a break as well and enjoy the scenery. But no, you just got to take your time and go slowly. I think it was about 20, yeah. It was a good size walk, and so, but you really need to work up to it. Don't get your greyhound and take them out for a long bush work the first week or month or even 6 months that you have them, because they're really used to being flatlanders. They're only on flat paddocks and racetracks, and they've probably, I think every time I've had a new greyhound, it's the first time that they've seen a hill is when they've been with me. So they have to build up that fitness and that experience on hills. Missy's favourite treat is her ball. She is ball crazy. She just loves playing with her balls, or sticks, or people's shoes. She will go and find people's shoes and either take them to her bed or take them out and under a bush. So when I've got visitors, often we have to go and hunt out people's shoes from the bushes. 7 hours was the longest. But normally during the week when I have to work, I take them for a 25-minute walk before I go out. So they had some exercise before they put in their run. And at the weekends they get about an hour to 2 hour walk. But they don't actually like being on my bed. So yeah, I've encouraged them onto my bed, but they get really restless and start playing, and then I end up kicking them out. They both love to play with each other. Let me see. Yeah, when they're happy, they're playing. They play fight. They actually get really vigorous, and I just get out of the way because they just explode together. Yes, they do. Probably for about 9 months of the year, I put pyjamas on them because it can get quite cool in Picton. And so if I always judge if I need an extra blanket on the bed, that's when they have pyjamas on. Missy will whack my arm, so it doesn't matter if I'm holding a cup of tea, she'll get a nose under my arm and it goes fire. Fern's more circumspect. She'll come over and see if I'm interested, and if I'm not, she'll go back to her bed again. I think they understand what I'm saying. I think they're smart enough to have a vocabulary of maybe 20 words that when I say something to them, they know what it means. I can show you if you like.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on a walk. Are you coming on a walk? Are you going on a walk? Are you? Shall we go for a walk? Yes, we will. One of them, I'm not sure who, sleep talks. So they sleep bark, but the other night one of them was actually sleep talking. She was chattering away. I had to, in the end, tell her to stop because she was waking up my flatmate. They're bald, or they've got a soft stuffed dog called Doggy. I would love to have more greyhounds, but no, 2 is enough for the size of my lounge and car. Yeah. Thanks very much for having me on the show, and I hope you have many happy memories with your new greyhound.
Bye.
See ya.
Alrighty, so now we're going to launch on into the expert segment. This week we are doing the part 2 of the history of greyhounds. I have gone from the 17th century through to modern day, which was very different from the first history of greyhounds I did. You guys will see. It's very intriguing. Enjoy. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the expert segment for the Hounds for Life podcast. This episode I'm going to dive back into the history of greyhounds with you guys. We're going to go from the 1700s right through to modern day greyhounds. For modern day greyhounds, I pretty much solely focused on New Zealand greyhounds. I wanted it to be a little bit more in depth than it would have been if I had done worldwide. However, I will possibly do another segment of this and go a bit broader. So let's launch right into it. As the Middle Ages gave way, the status of the greyhound remained much the same. Though they were no longer valued above human life, they were still considered to be of a very high status symbol. Hunting was eventually no longer considered a worthwhile endeavour, and soon became less of a means to survive and more of a sport. Highly bred sporting dogs were put to use in the arenas of sports, and dog racing soon rivaled horse racing in popularity. England is credited with being the originating nation for modern-day greyhound racing, and in Hendon, a mechanical device was created to encourage the dogs to race at top speed down a straightway. Before long, greyhound racing ceased to be a gentleman's sport only, and soon working-class people were also involved in the racing industry. In the 18th century, the English Earl of Orford created the first racing club, which opened to the public in 1776 in Norfolk. At the same time, horse racing was also opened to the public. One of the most famous greyhounds in history is Snowball, who won 4 cups over 30 races in his career. The 18th century is also when breeders began to keep pedigrees, i.e. records, of their dogs. The very first greyhound to ever set foot in New Zealand arrived aboard the Endeavour in the 1700s. However, greyhounds were not imported into New Zealand until the mid-1800s. This is due to hares. So hares were brought into New Zealand in 1868 and were released around the country to be hunted as a sport. However, due to their rapid breeding, they quickly became a pest for farmers, who decided to import British greyhounds to help control the hares. Coursing competitions between farms was the result of this biological control, and the first coursing clubs were founded in Southland in 1876. The Gambling Act of 1908 legalised gambling on horse racing but did not apply to greyhound racing. However, in 1970, due to Greyhound Racing New Zealand, betting on greyhounds was legalised. This allowed greyhound racing to start making profits, which were used to improve tracks and make the industry more professional. In terms of tracks, there are currently 8 around New Zealand, and all trainers and owners are registered with Greyhound Racing New Zealand. I did try to look into whether or not greyhounds were bred as pets, for pets specifically. However, I really couldn't find anything regarding that. All I could find was that they are bred for racing. So if anyone has any information on whether or not they are bred for pets anywhere in the world, that would be very awesome, and I would much appreciate being sent the info. Finally, we are at the 20th century, the modern day greyhound. I did look into it, but I couldn't find anything, as I said, regarding whether or not greyhounds are bred specifically for pet life. I only found information regarding the racing industry. So there are currently 8 tracks in New Zealand that greyhounds are raced on, and all trainers, owners and the dogs are registered with Greyhound Racing New Zealand. Once they finish racing, they go to the Greyhound Racing New Zealand kennels. They have 3 currently in New Zealand where they are prepared for pet life. Every year there are approximately 500 greyhounds that get rehomed within New Zealand, which is actually less than 1% of all dogs that are rehomed within the country per year. Beautiful. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this history segment with me. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Credit where credit is due. This is where I got all of the information from for you guys. I'll see you guys in the next history segment. Have fun with the rest of the podcast. Ciao, ciao.
That was so interesting. I love your history segments. And now we are going to our how-to segment. This time I'm going to show you guys how you can build your very own greyhound run. All you need is land,
Yeah.
like a paddock or a long garden, obviously, and then you're off to go. Why do we even think of greyhound runs? I think the point is really that, as you well know, being greyhound owners or watching our podcast and being very well versed in greyhound things, the greyhounds are not great walkers or exercisers. Well, however, they love the shared sports, which we call zoomies, and the best and safest way to provide a space to do zoomies is an enclosed and fenced long straight run, because greyhounds are used to, from their training, to go straight ahead.
Yeah.
And of course they can go in the round and they can zoom in small areas, but the best thing for them is to go full speed and go for a few seconds just straight and exhaust themselves, and then they are done for the day or the week, actually. And also, as we enjoy good food and exercise as being the lifestyle choices for a healthy living, it's the same with the dog. So the right exercise for the greyhound is the best bet to have him have a long and happy and healthy life with your greyhound. And appropriate exercise for a greyhound is to go on daily walks in around 20 minutes and have occasionally and build up to sprints that they can actually exercise their muscles and stay fit and look good. To build a run that is suitable to give greyhounds the best exercises once they have retired from their racing career, obviously you need a stretch of land. It doesn't need to be a large paddock like we are blessed to have at the Paranui Permaculture Homestead and Animal Sanctuary. It can be also the back of your backyard when you have a bigger garden there. You could fence off the back there and create a smaller run. This run we have made in the back of the paddocks has approximately 100 meters in length, with a small bend in there, and is at its widest part 8 meters and at its smallest part 4 meters wide. It is on the grass, so we just keep the grass short, but it can also be ship mulch or sand on the surface, which would be very suitable and would probably keep also the weeds out. You need, most importantly, a fencing that is completely enclosing the whole area, and the fence has to be 1.80 meters high. It has to have, obviously, a gate or two, which is safely secured. And the most important part of all is that you have a visual on your fence in the eyesight of your greyhound. The greyhounds are sight hounds, and they do not see the wires of a fence when they are at speed. They will probably run straight into it. So therefore we have put up a shade cloth at about 30 centimeters high to the height of the fence, to make sure that the greyhound is capable of seeing the fence when he or she is running full speed. For the fencing itself, you can use standard fencing materials. Here we have a sheep fencing, which has verticals and horizontals, which are guaranteed that by the size of the greyhound that they won't be able to sneak through. But also just the wires appropriately sized at about 15 centimeters would make sure that the greyhound cannot go through. Then after all, the greyhound is quite a large animal. Although slim, he or she can maybe slip through gaps easily, but not so easily through there. Now at the end of our run, we have doubled the visual, our shed cloth, because that is where they have to stop and turn around. So we wanted to make sure that they are absolutely certainly seeing the end of the run here, which can also be a timber wall that would be very suitable for the end of a run, or another material that is not see-through. Although most of the retired greyhounds that you be able to adopt would have been trained to go in a greyhound run, it is different for the retired racing greyhound, a different setup. They don't have the starter box, they don't have the excitement of the racetrack, so they will not naturally know what to do when you take them in the run. So here we demonstrate just quickly how we trained Bella to use the run. We hold her firmly on her collar, and then we shout at her 1, 2, 3, go, and then she normally, 95% of the cases, she goes to the end of the run and comes back, and she might even goes twice. So the run is 100 meters long. If she goes back and forth, that will be 200 meters, and when she goes twice, that is 400 meters, which is an excellent distance for exercising a greyhound.
For the featured fostered this week, we have got a greyhound called Perry. Perry is a super sweet dude. He has I'm not going to give too much away actually. You guys enjoy and watch it.
Little darling, it's been a long, long racing season. Little darling, it's time to rest and find a home.
Hi everyone, today I am here with Perry, who was known as Bacchus when he raced. He is 2 years, 8 months old, and he's been with us for a few weeks now, and he is looking for his forever home. He is a very cute dude. He loves to run around the paddocks. He just like runs and runs and runs. I think maybe that's his way of showing you that, you know, he really likes you. Perry has a very unique tail. It's a little bit curly at the end, which is super cute. We'll put it in. And I really love it. And he's super fluffy, super cool dude, really chill, really sweet. Hey dude! He hasn't quite got the couch thing yet, but he'll get there. He's tired too. Big day. Yeah. Nice man. Yeah. Good boy.
Little darling, it's been a long, long racing season. Little darling, it's time.
coming to the end of the show, and we hope you really enjoyed it. As always, we so much enjoyed to do it and to provide this information and entertainment to you. We are having not quite a greyhound walk, but we took our greyhounds. We are taking you through the festivities of the 250 years of the Endeavour and Captain Cook, and have lots of footage there. So you see Picton and the area and the ocean and the Marlborough Sounds where the ships came through, and it's really, really interesting and unique. So we hope you enjoyed the show. And as always, please, 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 please continue watching. Comment if you see something that you like or something you want to see or whatever comes to your mind. Please comment on the YouTube channel, and so we have an idea if we're heading the right direction with our show. And obviously subscribe and put the notification on to see more of us and be notified every time the new episode comes out. Anything else, Shanna?
Okay, so we have a couple of comments here that we are going to read out, which is really cool. Thank you guys so much for commenting. So our first comment that we ever got was from Luckry Fine Art, and this was on episode 3, Harry and Where Do Greyhounds Even Come From? And she said, "This is awesome. I'm going to be getting my first ever retired racer next month." So this was a month ago, so hopefully she has her first retired greyhound now.
And hello to her.
Yeah,
thank you for watching.
Thank you. I'm so excited, and this was a lot of fun to watch to hold me over until I get my own grey. I currently have 2 Italian greyhounds who are getting pretty old and aren't too enthusiastic about walks anymore. I can't wait to have a dog who wants to go on walks with me again. So that is so awesome. Thank you so much for commenting. It makes us feel really good when we know that, you know, we're actually benefiting people.
Okay, so that's time for us to say goodbye, and we see you back on Christmas.
Woo.
Yay!
Bye everyone.
Bye. Maybe Teddy wants to say bye too. She's got a new haircut.
Oh.
Look, Teddy, say bye-bye. Bye.